George Aguero, Dade Lock and Key in Miami, Florida. You're talking to the European Locksmith Federation, our presentation on master key database security. You're an American locksmith for 45 years.
Yes.
Major lock shop in the Miami, Florida area. So we've been doing a study and we're looking at developing industry guidelines for the protection of master key data. Tell me what's your take on the security at the lock shop level, which we've analyzed is really the problem. It's not so much the manufacturer, they protect everything. It's not distribution, it's not the distribution chain, it's really not the end user, it's the locksmith. Because the locksmith is the focal point for all the keys come in, you cut the keys, you update the cylinders, rekey the cylinders, install the cylinders, you have the key lists.
Right.
So tell me, in your lock shop, how easy would it be to compromise if I want to break into a building and I want the keying system for that building? First of all, it wouldn't be very difficult for me to find out that you were the locksmith for that building. We talked about that off camera. If I went to a target building and said, look, we're building a new building, we need the recommendation for the best locksmith in Miami.
We have the standard protection.
Which is what?
Which is, we keep everything in a file cabinet, we lock it up. Doesn't have the greatest security on that file cabinet, but it is locked up. We follow the protocol to where we try to keep everything hidden away as far as the address and the locations of the buildings. But again, if you're pretty savvy and you break and you take the records, eventually you can figure out where it goes to.
Well, okay, first of all, I looked at your file cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I grew up picking locks as well.
Yeah.
This file cabinet is 10 seconds.
Right.
It's just the push button file cabinet.
Yep.
And a lot of those you can stick a wire right through the keyway.
Yes.
Click, it's open. I don't even need to pick the lock. Okay, so now I've got all your books and records. There has to be some relatively easy correlation between a customer location and the key data. Because you can't make it so complicated that you can't figure it out.
Correct. No, and we have a name. All we do is put a name.
Okay.
Not a fictitious name, but usually some kind of a name. Do we know if that name belongs to a building? Only if the building name is the same name we put on it. A lot of times we put a name on it, it has nothing to do with the building, but a management company.
Okay.
If they know and more advanced in who's doing the management, yeah, they can figure it out.
Okay. Do you think there ought to be some form of guidelines and standards with regard to security for locksmiths? Because you guys control all the secrets. The reality is that you're responsible for the protection of every building.
Yes.
That you key, that you maintain, that you install. You guys are it.
Yeah, that's why we try to be careful on that. Is there some kind of a guideline? I would go along with it, as long as somebody enforces that guideline. Some kind of a certification to where they can come in and say, okay, let me see your master key systems and how do you keep it and where do you keep them? How do you protect it? So if there is certifications to guidelines and somebody checking that, then it would probably be, I would say, 90% better than what it is today.
So, in the past, you have done state and federal government buildings.
Yes.
As far as master key systems.
Yes.
Who has those records?
I have some of those records, and in some occasions they had their own records, and they just gave me the biddings. But in my records, it doesn't reflect any address to any of the federal buildings. No address.
What about state or city or county?
Yeah, it doesn't have any address. It just has a name.
Okay. So how do you know what the name is?
That's what you say.
Your wife has to tell you?
That's where I come in. It's in my head. This is why. This is where.
That could be a problem.
Yeah. Well, like if I not here, then nobody can do it until I get back. If I'm not going to show up again because I moved on to greener pastures,
Yeah.
then there's a problem.
Then how do they service those buildings?
Then you have to get somebody a little smart and get the existing keys and start decoding.
Oh, that would be a nightmare.
Yeah. But I've done it. I've done it.
Yeah, what if you have 1,000 cylinders?
Well, you may have 1,000 cylinders. You may not have 1,000 different key different.
No, depending on how the
But-
master key system is defined.
Yeah.
Are your computers hooked up to a phone line so you can remotely access them, or to the internet, so you can sit at home and getting into your databases?
For my database, yes, but on my database it has no master key system whatsoever.
Okay, so you can only do accounting,
Exactly.
but not actual
No,
physical.
it's not connected. None of the programs that I have is connected to the internet.
And what about your mobile van?
They don't have no bidding sheets.
Nothing.
Nothing.
So if it's broken into, it's not a
Everything is
problem.
done here.
Okay.
We have to come here, set it up here, and then go out there.
So I guess my final question, do you think it would be a positive move forward for the industry rather than the government to draw guidelines for locksmiths to adhere to protect master key database?
Yes, the industry would do a much better job than the government would. Government is only interested in the money factor. The industry would be interested more in the protection factor.
No, George, the government's here to help you.
Yeah, and take the money. They got their hands out always.
Yeah.
But no, if the industry, they know what really needs to be done. They're the ones who are the experts. The government is not the expert.
You would agree if a master key system is compromised in a building or multiple buildings, that would be a real problem.
Yes, absolutely. Because now you have not only somebody has that key to get in at any given time, anything can happen and somebody's going to be liable.
If you got called and said you have to rekey every lock in a 500,000 cylinder building, which is not unusual, how long would that take you?
Oof, that's a nightmare.
Yeah.
You're talking a lot of hours. It's hard to say.
And a lot of money.
Yeah, for somebody that's got to pay for it. But I mean, that's a large system, and that would take quite some time.
Yeah.
That's not an overnight thing.
No, and that is precisely the problem with mechanical locks.
Yes.
If they're electronic cylinders, you can do it instantly.
Yes.
Which is why electronic cylinders are also going to be more and more integrated into the commercial and government systems, because they give you the flexibility that you cannot have with mechanical cylinders.
Yeah, no, that's it. Mechanical cylinder, somebody's got to go do it physically.
Physically. That would be correct.
Yeah.
George, thank you very much.
Well, thank
this
you,
has
Mark.
been a pleasure.
Same, always. This is nice to see you.
Thank you.
My goodness, man.